I remember growing up in New England with many snowy Christmases spent with eggnog, the family, and lots of laughs. As a kid, one of my favorite presents to get was multi-packs of comic books. I loved the video games, snowboards, and, well, socks. But it was always the comics that I loved to get. It's these fond memories of tearing open the wrapping paper and finding a pile of brand new comic books in a box that I could read and add to my collection to make Christmas and comic books intrinsically tied together for me. But I'm not alone with this. Santa Claus first appeared in DC Comics in the Golden Age, 1940's Superman Christmas Adventure #1, and for Marvel it was the Mid-Silver Age, 1955's Strange Tales #34. Since then, we've enjoyed many fascinating stories with Santa Claus, his exploits with the JLA, the X-Men, Lobos, Spider-Man, and so many more. We've also come to learn that Santa Claus is one of the most powerful mutants ever, an Omega-level mutant. Considering this, and that it's the holiday season once again, it's perfect time to discuss Santa Claus and discuss just how powerful he truly is. Before we begin though, let me thank you for watching JLS Comics and pressing play. If you like videos like this, don't forget to hit the like button, and if you want, the subscribe button. I upload new comic book and superhero content weekly. Okay, with that out of the way, let's jump into our Santa Claus story. Writer Grant Morrison wrote a 7-part miniseries in 2015 for Boom Studios called Claus. I like to say Klaus. He describes what makes Santa Claus a superhero best. Grant said, "I started to look into the mythology of Santa Claus over the centuries. I discovered every country has their own version. The Russian Santa is Grandfather Frost, then there's Father Christmas. There's a whole bunch of them. It's like there's a Justice League of Santas. The more I look into it, the more he seemed like a comic character and superhero. It just took off from there. I was aiming for a combination between Superman and Doctor Who, a character you can tell any kind of story with. Santa Claus is truly an Omega-level mutant, and we'll talk about that in a moment and just what that means, but Santa Claus has been in and out of comic books for decades. Some light, fun stories, some rather dark and controversial stories, but all of them ridiculous. So we should discuss some of these other examples and the characters with whom he has had encounters, some of which will show us the nature of his power. In 1991, Scott Lobdell and John Byrne, who was revisiting one of his FF characters at the time, took on A Christmas Story in What the? Issued number 10. In this story, Santa Claus crash-landed in Latveria and was wounded, so Dr. Doom himself replaced Santa Claus. Dr. Doom had no problem with this until he had to deliver presents to the homes of superheroes, namely the Fantastic Four. The heroes battle Santa Doom, but stop when the Children's Hospital residents see them fighting. 2009's Marvel Holiday Spectacular one-shot found Santa in the North Pole, where he discovered that his reindeer are actually shape-shifting Super Skrulls. The Super Skrull reindeer overpowered the Avengers, and so the Avengers promptly gives Santa Claus the Infinity Gauntlet, except now, mad with power, Santa turned evil. And it was up to Iron Man to create Iron Reindeer to get the gauntlet off of Santa. See, I told you these were ridiculous. Another time, because why not, right? This one was in Sensational She-Hulk #8. John Byrne decided that Santa would become a detective and help out She-Hulk using his vast naughty or nice knowledge and breaking and entering skills. Santa hit on Jennifer Walters, and Mrs. Claus found out, and to punish them, she filled She-Hulk's office with reindeer poop. Yes, she did. Santa's no stranger to DC Comics either. In the DC universe, Santa Claus is a being that inhabits the dreaming, which is the same realm where the endless reside, and that's dream, destiny, death, desire, despair, delirium, and destruction. He is powerful enough to penetrate apocalypse to deliver coal to Darkseid's doorstep every single year. There's a story called A Sealman's War on Santa Claus, originally by Jack Kirby, that actually didn't see print for about 10 years since when he created it to when it was in print, where a man named Jed had to prove Santa existed, so he summoned Sandman, friend of Santa of course, and the two traveled to the North Pole to discover Santa kidnapped by a legion of sealmen. Why? Well, Santa had given them gloves, and apparently they don't have fingers, so they were pissed off. In Mark Waid's JLA #60, as told by Plastic Man, Santa fights demonic elves working with the demon Niran, who is trying to destroy Christmas, and I guess the one ended up being Martian Manhunter, but, you know, it's still cool. Alright, what about the story where Santa Claus is a ruthless dictator that rules over his empire with an iron fist? It was up to the Easter Bunny, who hired Lobo to stop him. Lobo slaughtered dozens of elves to get to the merciless Santa, and after the fight, Lobo cut off Santa's head, and he shot Rudolph. Poor Rudolph. Another controversial appearance of Santa is not so much of an appearance in full, but it's an appearance of, well, sort of an appearance. One of DC Comics' most powerful magicians, John Constantine, decided to get high on the crushed powdered bones of St. Nicholas and Hellblazer number 247. See what I mean? Sort of. Or should I say, snort of. Garth Ennis, another fabled writer, decided that Santa should not only be radioactive, but go on a killing spree. To be fair, this is just someone in a Santa suit, not the actual Jolly Saint Nick, but still. In Justice League number 110, which was Len Wein with Dick Dillon on art, Santa was murdered in a story called The Man Who Murdered Santa Claus. If that doesn't sound like a good story for the kids, I don't know what does. Santa almost sold his entire empire to Hydra, and it ended up being Howard the Duck working as a mall Santa that convinced him not to sell to Hydra. So these stories kind of give you an idea of the power and the scale of Santa's powers, but it was not made official until 1991's Marvel Holiday Special. In the story, the X-Men are celebrating the holidays when Cerebro suddenly detects the most powerful mutant ever registered. The X-Men have to determine if the mutants are friends or foes, so they head to Rockefeller Center to initiate contact. And once there, they end up in a skirmish with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Santa saved the X-Men by turning their Brotherhood into toys and teleporting away the X-Men. The story, interestingly enough, was set right before the craziness of X-Men number 98, which the X-Men were captured by the Sentinels for Project Armageddon, and it took Jean Grey's Phoenix to rescue everyone. That's the same issue where we also learn where Wolverine's claws were part of his body and not just part of his gloves. So what does the most powerful mutant ever registered mean? That designation could easily classify him as an Omega level mutant. The term first appeared in Uncanny X-Men number 208, but it wasn't fully explained. We've had to extrapolate that from other stories and events. And Omega mutants, what can they do? Well, they can warp reality, they can manipulate time and matter, and can be destructive on a planetary scale. And characters like Jean Grey, Franklin Richards, Iceman, Legion, and Psylocke count themselves among Omega ranks. Yes, I did say Psylocke. Now let's think about Santa Claus for a moment, context of his power. One day a year, he gathers up all the toys in one bag and is somehow able to deliver everything to everyone in one night. Clearly able to teleport, he'd have to have temporal manipulation powers. And how does he get back up the chimney? Is it levitation? Santa has to have super strength to lift a massive bag, and he's been alive for centuries, so he's nearly immortal. He can manipulate the weather, and he rules over a legion of elves that are said to be descended from the light elves of Alfheim themselves. His sack is supposedly a mystical artifact, and it's said to hold a portal to another dimension where he stores the toys, a place that can hold all the toys for the entire world in one trip. So clearly, he's an Omega level mutant, the most powerful classification for mutants in the Marvel universe. And I must say, hashtag Cerebro was right. And that, my friends, is Santa Claus. Did I miss something you feel is important? Have questions or an idea for a future history video? Let me know in the comments or tweet at comicsjls and I'll add it to the list. As always, thanks for watching, subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video. Happy holidays.